And good morning, good evening, good night, whatever it is to everybody. Oh, time zones. Yes, time zones are a challenge. Why is the world a sphere? It would be so much easier if the world was flat, so the angle of the sun was the same to everybody all the time, and then there'd be no time zones. We'd have everybody on the same time constantly. See, it'd be much better if the world was flat. What did my brain just do? I don't know. Okay, before I lose the plot entirely. The important thing. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. Okay, now we can go back to me losing my mind. No, actually, no, the Earth isn't round. It's an oblate spheroid, I think, isn't it? Something like that. Austin, yes, you are on time. You made it just barely. Squeaked in. Good morning, Chip, Stephen, Sakosi, Aj. Scrolling down. Dave Paul Jones, yes, good evening, inventors. Stephen, did I say Stephen? I don't know. Hello to Stephen again, Steve the Squirrel. David Howes, Emmy is here, and Scott. Emmy is here already, Chip. I saw her in the chat just a moment ago. So, hang on, there was something relevant. That's right. I saw a thing in the chat from Steve the Squirrel saying Steve is in the house. Oh, look, a diet. I'm just going to go that way. That means the script, Mitchell's script for running the text-to-speech is up, but I haven't been able to load it. So I'm not quite sure what the deal is. Maybe the password has changed. What I should probably do is open Discord and check whether he sent me a message saying, here is the new password. No messages. Okay, so yeah, Austin, it will not say anything because I can't log into the web page that does the speech output from that. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I've just tried reloading it and it just keeps looping back to the back to the login screen. Chip says Dyson Sphere time. Oh, Mitchell, you're here. Awesome. All right, I will just try loading and then I'll click on go to live and no, back to the login screen. Oh, sorry, Mitchell. Okay, what am I doing? Okay, I'm moving the chat. I'm moving the chat out of the way. Now, last week I said that what we might do this week is have a look at the update of the presence sensor project, and unfortunately we can't do that. Amanda has some things that she has to deal with, and she hasn't had a chance to update the document. So we'll get back to that maybe next week. I'm not quite sure. Sometime. But, okay, so Henrik wants to know, what is today's topic? The topic, what I was thinking of doing is, this is going to sound like the most boring thing ever. Inventory management. It just changed? What just changed? I don't know. Yes. So this is a problem. It is something that is becoming a problem for me. It hasn't been much of a problem in the past, and I want to find a solution to it. Yeah, hard equals complex. Yes. So what I'm going to do is, just got to pull up another window up here. Inventory online demo. All right, we will have a look at that in a moment. But first, yeah, I know Emmy says, woohoo, inventory management. Not the most fun thing in the world. Testing voice locally. Oh, Mitchell is on the case. I'll just try hitting a reload on it to see if that is back. It isn't back for me yet. It could just be that I have an old password or something remembered in the Yes, Austin said, funnily enough, I'm building an inventory system, management system right now. Yes, Austin is and has been for quite some time, doing the hardware portion of it for a while and more of the software now, I think, as from what little I understand of what Austin is doing with that. So there are a number of things. Okay, before we get into existing projects, and I just want to say I am not starting an inventory management project. That is okay, I will try the text to speech. No, it just loops around. Maybe that's what happens when the password is wrong. Refresh first, yes. I will do a shift refresh to make sure there is nothing cached, and then click on go to live, and it just stays on the login page. It could be that my browser has an old password. So I apologize for everybody for this messing around. I'm going to scroll back. Looking for a password. Not sure. Anyway. Okay, so try incognito window. Okay, that means I would need to find the password, which I think will be back in chat from you at some point. Scrolling back. No, there's been a fair bit of stuff in our chat. Ray is here as well, and DBR, g'day. Still can't find the password. This is gripping for everybody. Oh, okay, I found the password. All right, that means I'm going to try this in an incognito window. Open that. Put in the password. And go to live. Let's see if this one works. No, it hasn't. Sorry, Mitchell. It just goes back to the login page. So perhaps I am doing the wrong password. Anyway. Well, Mitchell, thanks for trying to figure that out. Oh, 3 new messages. Okay. Oh, maybe that's the password. It could be... Yes. Oh, no. Now I get a bad gateway message. Oh, okay. Cool. I will try that again in a moment. This has really thrown me. Okay. Oh, it is working. Activate.
System connected. Activating the super house. Squirrel.
Nice. Okay. It is all up and running. Whew. Thanks, Mitchell. So, there are quite a few inventory management projects around at the moment. And, oh, hang on. Aren't you a moderator? What's going on there? Oh.
Austin's _creation said howdy.
Yeah, that worked. Sorry, excuse me for just a moment, because I am changing something. Okay. How about I end this stream and then start again? We can pretend that the last 10 minutes didn't even happen. Yes. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I'm only starting 10 minutes late, and now we're getting into it. So, there is no way that I want to create an inventory management project. I do not want to start something like that. And but I have a problem.
Outside the box said boo.
And it worked. And Andrew said, did you get the OpenKO board working? Yes, I did. So in fact, the KO this week has made how many? A few small panels plus a couple of boards. It's made probably about 80 PCBs this week. Probably a moderately quiet week for it, but it has assembled about 80 PCBs using the prototype OpenKO board with those patches that have been applied to it. And the actual production OpenKO board is in transit right now. It's shipped from JLC, and I should have it sometime in the next few days. So I am going to, hang on, I'm going to make a copy of something. I've got a document here which I'm going to show you, but I'm going to anonymize a few things because I started doing it for a client and then messed around. Is it that one? That one. I'm just going to delete a couple of things and rename a couple of things so that you can't tell what it is. And that should be about it. Okay. Now, where are we? Assembly, consumables, packaging, assembly time. Where is that calculation coming from? Oh, okay, from there. Assembly. No, where is that calculation coming from? I should have done all of this before the stream. Okay, that is coming from parts prices on a VLOOKUP on assembly time. Where is it
Peter
in the
Lawler
list?
said, hello, Mr. Gumby.
Hello, Mr. Peter. Oh, there it is. Okay, time. Let's make that a different number, just to hide the real numbers. All right, here we go. I am going to show you a spreadsheet, which I was messing around with for figuring out costings on boards. Now, there are really two distinct problems that I'm trying to solve here. The first problem is the obvious one, which is making sure that I don't run out of parts and trying to figure out whether I've got enough parts to do something. In the past, the way I have dealt with this is largely, I've got a few in a bag and I'm never going to need more than a few, like in any one go, because if I want to build a few boards, then I make some boards and it'll just be a small quantity. I'm not doing production. I've never really done production stuff here right in my own facility. I've been doing that through factories in China, and I don't even know how to speak. And when I have built boards, there are a couple of factors. One is that it's usually for myself. So if I want to make 10 of something, typically I'll have 10 of a part. Like worst case scenario, I need 10 of a certain value of resistor. I will have it in like a resistor pack or something. I haven't really been in a situation where I need to plan for, oh, I have to make sure I have 1,000 of that, or I have to make sure I have 300 of that particular capacitor. There's always been enough slop that if it turns out that I can't make 10 of this board, then I'll order some parts and maybe I'll do it in a couple of weeks, or I'll do it in a week. But now it's in a situation where where I have clients who are saying, I need 70 boards by Thursday, and it's not enough lead time to be able to order parts and get them in if it turns out that it gets to the last minute, I'm about to run the build, and I see, oh, I don't have 70 of those parts. Like, it could be an MCU or something. This situation actually came up last week, where a client needed, in this particular case, about 50 boards, and it needed an MCU that is about $12 per chip. And so not an ESP32, it was another slightly more specialized MCU, and I didn't have 50 of these $12 MCUs sitting on the shelf, like just randomly waiting for something to come along that needs them. It's the sort of thing where I would only have it if I specifically ordered it because I knew I needed that quantity and I knew in advance that I needed it. Trady says, sounds like you're ramping up to unexpected maker levels. He pumps them out. No, not that sort of volume. Xeon does a really huge volume. And also he does boards, well, I think he does some contract work as well. He doesn't ever really talk about it, but he does customization of some of his boards. But most of the volume that he does is his own products. Things like the tiny Pico. And he knows, for example, that he needs to produce, I'm just making up numbers, say, make 5,000 tiny Picos. And there is a batch that has to be done over the space of a period of time because he's got to fulfill orders to resellers, and those resellers might have ordered thousands at a time potentially. So he's at a whole extra scale, and also it's his own products. The issue I'm facing now is I've got clients coming to me saying I need 50 of this board now, and in 2 weeks time I need 100 of it, and then a couple of weeks after that I need another 50. So it's not quite the same structure or dynamics of how parts need to be managed. It's less a case of get parts for 5,000 and run a batch, and more a case of I have to, and then another batch might be done sometime down the track. It's more, it's in between doing a couple of boards in a totally ad hoc manner and doing large production runs of one particular thing. It's that painful in-between size where I need to do 50 or 100 of something, and then a few days later it's 50 or 100 of a different thing, and then I might need to do more of the first thing the following week. It's all over the place, and it's totally getting out of control. And also part of it is trying to figure out costings, so how much to charge for things. And a lot of the boards that I build are quite labor intensive. They might have very large unusual connectors on them, like on the water cannon boards, for example. The motor control end has a connector on it that is like a sealed environmental protection thing. It's got triple gaskets on it. The connector alone costs like $24 for one connector, and it's very bulky and it takes a bit of assembly to put it on. So yeah, having stock of a bulk quantity of $24+ connectors is not the sort of thing that you can just go, oh, I'm going to order 100 of them and just have them sitting around. The overheads of having that sort of stuff gets way out of hand. So I need a way of managing this sort of thing and being able to quickly see what parts I've got on hand and be able to order any deficits, so that I need a system where I can punch in, I need to build 50 of this board, tell me any of the parts that I don't have in stock, so that I can then order those parts, order whatever the delta is to make it up to the quantity. So there have been a couple of Thomas V says, depending on what you do, it comes down to having like a USB barcode scanner to speed up. A USB barcode scanner like this one? Yes. I have barcodes on all of my my parts. All of my part storage is barcoded, and I've got links to purchase pages actually on the packaging for every part that I have in storage. You can probably see, you can just see behind me in this part of the screen, you can see these boxes. Each of those boxes is a category of parts, and then in that box is anti-static bags for all of the parts with labels on it that says what the part is. It's got barcodes for the ordering pages at multiple suppliers for each part, like DigiKey, LCSC, etc., Element 14, whatever is appropriate. There's the sticker from one of the suppliers attached to the front, and a sticker that says what the category is, so that everything gets categorized properly. So yeah, that's one of the things I need to do. So the two problems I have to solve. One is keeping track of what parts I have on hand, so that I'm not just guessing or trying to remember that, oh, I think I have like 30 of those MCUs and they're in a bag up there somewhere, but I can look it up and know what it should be. And of course, there are always going to be variations. Stock management is never accurate because parts fail to place on the pick and place machine, or whatever happens, you end up using a few on a prototype. Some board fails and then you've got to do part swap, so you grab a couple of parts out of the bag. Before you know it, the numbers that are in your...
said, see my comment. Suitable for this.
Okay. Before you know it, your actual parts are not the same as what's in your inventory management system, and the more it deviates. So the thing is that this is putting a big burden on. This is one of the reasons that I've avoided this. It's a lot of work initially to get all the data into the system, and then it will rapidly deviate from reality. So it then puts a burden on to maintain it and keep updating things like stock quantities with what's in reality. Otherwise, it ends up being useless and you just don't bother using it. All it takes is a couple of times of thinking, I'm just going to grab a part out of the bag and use it on this prototype, and then forget to update the stock quantity in the database, and it begins to deviate. And then a little while down the track, you come to do a production run and you think you've got 20 MCUs on hand and you only have 17, and then you're in trouble. You're right there with boards pasted up. You think you got the parts and you don't. So it's a real burden to maintain an inventory management system. That's one of the reasons that I've avoided it. So Mitchell prompted me to say to his comment, which is, not a fan, but may I recommend Odoo. You can do do many SKUs. So if you need an OpenKO board, it auto says you need X parts and 2 parts aren't in stock. Yeah, cool. Yeah, Chris Davis says self-discipline. Yeah. Austin says, I probably do it how fab houses handle global sourcing, where you can get the items and cost, but also keep them informed with values and lead times. And Thomas says, I know that some companies, including ones that I work for, do what Stephen says about keeping inventory for a customer with contracts that oblige them to invest upfront for having stock. Yep, so these are good thoughts. DBR, it says, did you see the one where the bin will light up where the item is and it has a web interface? It uses WLED to share. Yes, I have seen that. And I have a system that's not actually running in this at the moment, not running since I moved to this lab, that uses the code. So you see there, it's out of focus, but you can see the tag, that sticker that's on the front of the box, that allows it to be discovered in 3D space. So the location of these containers can be tracked by an inventory management system in 3D within the lab. So I can put a box down somewhere and the system can find it by scanning by processing a photo of the room, essentially processing a video feed of the room. All right. Oh no, this makes it even worse. Jack says that's why you need multiple stocks, one for production, one for repairs, and one for prototyping. Oh, yeah, keeping track of that would be even worse. Arj Pan says, do you take a set percent of non-refundable deposit for custom PCB orders? I do it differently. I'm starting to, as things are starting to scale up, there is one client who purchases parts and then delivers them to me, particularly for the expensive parts. So, for example, I've got a reel of motor drivers sitting in the clean room. That reel cost $6,000 just for one reel. And my client bought that reel and then had it shipped to me. So he owns those parts. And then over time, as I build boards, they get loaded onto it. So I haven't had to foot the bill for paying for that. And that can complicate things as well, because I could, in some situations, I'm building a board for a client. I have paid for the PCBs and most of the parts that go on it, but then there'll be some parts that go on it that the client has paid for. So it's a mixed inventory, some that I have sourced, some that the client has sourced. So keeping track of that, and then how do you bill for that at the end of the day, is a whole lot of overhead. It's time just sitting there with spreadsheets and a bill of materials and trying to keep track of things, and time just gets sucked up trying to keep track of that. And what I'm going to show you now, Cable Tie said, these are many problems that others have solved before. Yes, exactly. And Cable Tie's earlier comment, give or take, once you set up your SKUs and parts and stock take, so long as you put your production and parts orders through the system, your stock holding will remain reasonably accurate. I'm not so sure that it will remain accurate because there are particularly for basic jelly bean parts, 10K resistors and things. A reel of those, by the time I get to the end of a reel, I expect that it's going to be off by a significant percentage. It'll probably run out at a time that I can't predict. Okay. Yeah, then there needs to be a whole lot of manual updates. So another example is recently we've been doing some experiments with CAN transceivers and ways to make them fail and make them blow up. And the result is that I've been doing testing on boards, blowing them up, replacing the transceivers, doing testing, blowing it up, replacing the transceivers, and I've been ripping through part stock doing that, like doing destructive testing, pushing the limits of things. And I would then have to keep track, as I'm doing this, I'm replacing parts on boards. I'll be sitting here with hot air and stuff. So I'll run a test on a board, blow up a transceiver, hot air it off, put it aside, new one on, change the settings, like change the voltage, run a test again, blow up another one, rip it off, and I'm just taking them off and throwing them in the bin. So what I would have to be doing is accounting for all of those parts and then going into the stock management system at the end and saying, I need to withdraw 7 of these CAN transceivers because I just blew them up, and replace them. And I would have to become very diligent about doing that and keeping everything right up to date. Yes, Automa says, but a reel of jelly bean parts costs normally next to nothing, so having an X amount of extra reels is not unrealistic. But you're right that your inventory will say you have more than you actually have. Yeah, so things like resistors are so cheap. It's like from LCSC, a reel of 500603 resistors is typically around $3 to $4 for, say, like a 1% resistor. So it's not hard to have an extra reel of every single value of resistor on hard for $3 a reel. Basically, who cares? $3 for 5,000 resistors. So I often order a couple of reels at a time. Like if I've got an order that I'm putting in with LCSC, and I know that I've only got, say, I've got a reel of 1K resistors that is on the machine, and I don't have any spare reels, then I'll just include a couple of extra reels in the order, because the extra $6 means that I know that I'm then covered for however long when the reels run out. Yeah, so Imi says, when I was working at a factory making outdoor blinds, we had to do our own stock take on parts by counting everything and writing it down on some paper. Yeah. Okay, so the other aspect of it, and this is going to be a bit of a revealing behind the scenes thing, and I'm very interested to know if there are suggestions on better ways to do this. This is the sort of thing that an inventory management system should be able to help me fix. So what I need to be able to do is come up with a price for how much I'm going to charge a customer to build some custom boards for them. Okay, this is the scenario. Imagine a customer comes to me and says, I need you to build me 40 of this particular board, and they want a fixed price per board. How do I work out what fixed price to charge them per board? And so this is a spreadsheet that I've just been screwing around with over the last few days. In fact, I'm going to zoom this in so you can see more of what's going on. And I've just been experimenting with, so in the past I've already shown you some of this bill of materials or batch quantity total calculation and the way the Chinese factories do it. So this block here, this yellow block, is based on the way Chinese factories do their internal cost calculations. And, well, at least some of the ones that I've dealt with. I don't know if it's universal or not. So this is, this part up here is modified. This is my changed version of it, because I was just trying to come up with a simple way of doing some costings. So in this particular case, what we can see is we've got 5 0603 capacitors. I don't care what value they are. It's an 0603 capacitor. It's going to have a price. So what I've done, just for sake of argument, is I've got this sheet here listing some capacitors. So capacitor 0603, give it a cost of 1 cent. Yes, I know that's actually more than the resistor costs. If it's $3 for a reel of 5,000, they cost less than 1 cent each. But this is just to give it a value. And it's got 2 pins, or 2 pads. That actually should say pads, typically, although some of them have pins instead of pads. So here we've got an 0603 capacitor, 1 cent with 2 pads. So the way the calculation works, if we go back to the, so this little thing here, this parts prices tab, is just a list of parts, what they cost, and how many pads they've got. And you can see there are some here that don't have prices in them. Okay, so now we come back to the specific project sheet. So this is PCB version 1.0, capacitor 06, well, I was saying resistor. Here we go, resistor 0603. It's got 0 in this design. It's not actually 0, it's just I haven't put a value in there. Let's put a value of, let's put 21. I'm just making up numbers here. So it's got 21 resistors. That gives it a cost of 21 cents and a total of 42 pads. Now, people who haven't seen this calculation before are probably wondering, what the hell is the pad count doing here? Why is that even significant? Does it matter? Yes, it factors into the calculation, the costing calculations for the assembly in a little bit. So we've got all of the different types of parts. So we've got 0603 capacitors, we've got 0603 resistors, we've got 0805 capacitors, 1206 capacitors, there's a cap G, so that's a polarized electrolytic capacitor, and SS56 diode, transient voltage suppressors. So we've got all these different parts, their headers and things.
Imogen Ann said, Jono, how hard is it to do auto CC and in different languages?
Auto closed captions, is that what you're talking about? And in different languages? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that you can turn that on in the YouTube settings from the viewer side. You just turn on closed captioning, and I think that you can also do auto translation, because I've watched videos in Chinese and German and other languages, turned on subtitles and had it do auto translation. So I can't remember specifically, but I think it's in the yeah, I think it's just in the player settings. All right, so in this PCB, we've got all of these parts. Let's say there's one Schottky diode. Let's say this one has one transient voltage suppressor. We've got a MOV. So it's populating the prices down here, and it's adding up the pad count here. Oh, LED driver, it's got 2 of those. Cost, oh, there's no cost in the other sheet. But anyway, you get the idea. The whole point is we don't care what the values are at this point. We only care what the cost of the parts is. So we down here, we come down. There are 2 sums at the bottom. There is this sum, which is the sum of the bill of materials column. So that is the sum of this column. It's the cost of all of the parts. The raw costs just added up. And in this case, it comes to $12.98. So far, you can see that these don't even have quantities against them and such. So let's ignore those for now. So, oh, hang on, what have I just broken? I just did something. Okay, it's because I deleted that quantity. All right, and this is the sum of the pads. Now, that means we have a total of $12.98 in out-of-pocket costs on the parts, and there are 170 soldered pads across all of those parts. Now, in this particular case, I've got a line here for additional BOM. This is just a place you can put an arbitrary number in. For example, maybe there is something that is not on the PCB. It might be a cable assembly. It could be some matching connectors that need to be included in the box, but they're not actually part of the PCB. So this is just a place where you can put in arbitrarily, oh, I've got $1.20 worth of extra stuff that goes in the box. Whatever, it could be a USB cable, whatever. And then PCB price, this is just where you put in whatever it costs for the PCB. That is a whole question in itself, because you have to amortize the cost of a stencil and shipping and everything else. So the difference in price between ordering 10 PCBs and a stencil and ordering 100 PCBs and a stencil is enormous. The per PCB price, once it's amortized with those other overheads, can change dramatically. All right, now BOM kitting fee. This is an interesting one. So the BOM kitting fee is basically overheads, and the calculation that you can see here is that it is the sum of the bill of materials price and the PCB price multiplied by 20%, so by 0.2. So that is like a, you can think of it as being like margin, but it's not really profit margin. It is covering the overhead of the fact that when you're loading parts in a machine, you're going to lose the first few parts as you're doing setup. And when you take stuff out, you're going to lose some parts potentially. And when and it takes time. There is also this also incorporates some of the management overhead or the administrative overhead of the time to check inventory and place orders and all of those sorts of things. So it's basically a fee for maintaining the bill of materials and sourcing the parts. It doesn't actually cover the costs, but so there's a 20%. It's like a slush, because the thing is, if you don't have this, if this number is 0, you will always end up below, because there are inevitably going to be parts losses. There will be extra costs. You never get 100% yield on your parts. So this is basically, and if you thought a 20% margin was objectionable, then you could make it 5% or something. It doesn't really matter, but there has to be something. Otherwise, you are always going to be losing. So there's got to be something above the raw parts cost. So that's the kitting fee. Consumables price. Now this is an interesting one. So what you can see here is that this is calculated.
Imogen Ann said you need one of those loss prevention security guards from Hangout. Lol.
Yeah, our cable tie says shrinkage is the colloquial term for it. Yeah. Yeah. Ahaj said the most guessed line in the spreadsheet is the assembly time. It could have been 25 or even 40. Joy of pricing. Yeah. Oh, and Austin says I've started tracking shipping costs too because of how silly they've gotten. Yes, you've got to include shipping costs into your into the costs of the parts. Okay, so yeah, we'll get to assembly time in just a moment, Arch. So there's packaging. Okay, consumables price. So this is one that can be a little hard to explain, but this is a multiple of the number of pads on the board. Now, this is one of those things that you can't actually put a proper price on it. It is the cost of the solder paste. It's the cost of the cleaning fluid used for cleaning the solder paste stencils. It's the cost of maintaining pick and place machines, like replacing the water trap filters and oiling and all of those sorts of things. The cost of the electricity to run the pick and place machine, the cost of the electricity to run the reflow oven. There are all of these sorts of things, lots of things that are secondary costs, but really, really hard to pin down. Like, for example, could I work out the cost of the electricity required to run the reflow oven for doing a particular batch of PCBs and then work that back to the cost of the electricity per PCB? Maybe, but it would be a lot of work and it'd be a total pain and it probably wouldn't be very accurate. So this number is a fudge. This consumables price is a fudge number that covers the cost of the isopropyl alcohol that you use to clean the squeegee. You know, it's it's just one of those things where you have to cover a whole lot of very soft costs that you really can't pin down. It's simply a way of scaling that little bit of extra cost based on the complexity or the size of the board that you're assembling. And it works out, it's done as the basis of 1 cent per solder joint. So you can see in this case we've got 170 solder joints to be done on this board. And so the consumables price is just the number of solder joints times 1 cent. And in reality that should actually be quite a bit larger. I think it should be more than 1 cent per solder joint. It should be some bigger number, because it comes out to $1.70 per board in this case. So that is, once again, that's kind of a fudge number. Like the BOM kitting fee is at 20%, this is a fudge number that covers all of those very hard to accurately quantify expenses that just come along, like lint-free wipes. How do you account for that? Inevitably, when you're assembling PCBs, you will go through solder paste, lint-free wipes, isopropyl alcohol, cleaning fluid in the ultrasonic cleaner, the electricity to run the ultrasonic cleaner, the electricity to run the pick and place machine, the lights in the room, all of these sorts of things. You can't nail those costs down per board. So there just needs to be something that scales based on the complexity of the board to add some fee to that. And so the way that I have seen this done in Chinese factories, And once again, this is probably not universal. This is just what I've seen with the ones that I've interacted with, where I've been able to get this sort of internal information about what they do, is they basically just say, oh, 1 cent per pad, and then add that to each board. And that's kind of a fudge factor that covers all of those extra things. Okay. Oh, Imi says, I've noticed that mechanics are including a cost for cleaning rags, wiper cleaning fluid, and a range of random small things in their calculation of costs. Oh, interesting. I hadn't noticed that. Oh, Stephen says, that's also a factor of how part dense your boards are. Are they all 0201 parts or 1206? They use vastly different amounts of solder and size for cleaning. That's right. This is all fudging. You could spend hours and hours trying to nail down these parts for each individual board design that you want to do, and it's just not worth the time. So it's just a fudge number. Trady says, I'll install some smart power meters for you. Don't forget I'm a licensed electrician. Thanks, Trady. Yeah, being able to track it is very useful. Peter says, the reality is you can calculate what you want. If that cost is too high, your product is no longer competitive on the market. Yeah, okay, so packaging price, this is just like a number that I put in, like 20 cents for an anti-static bag, that sort of thing. And assembly time. All right, so in this particular case, I've got assembly time set as 0.6 of an hour, which works out to, what does it work out to? 37, I think it's 37 minutes, around about, something like that. Now this number is going to vary dramatically. If you are building panels at a time of boards that that you can then test on an automated test jig, the actual assembly time is probably going to be very, very low, because each board cycles through very quickly. It might be that you only need a couple of minutes of your time per board. So this number
Peter
could
Lawler
be...
said, my brain hurts.
Sorry, Peter. So this is... so this could be, I don't know, 0.05 or something, and then it's $2.50 per board, or it could be 0.6, so 37 minutes per board, and $30. So where that's actually coming from, if you look in parts prices, there is this row of assembly time, there are 0 pads involved, and it's $50 an hour. So that's not actually the rate that I charge. I just changed, before I showed this to you, I changed some of these numbers so that this is not representing reality. My contracting rate is actually many times this per hour, but the contracting rate that I can charge for design type work
is stuck in the cupboard.
Well, get it out of there, Peter. So the rate that I can charge for doing things like R&D and product design work is different to the rate that you can charge for assembly. So basic board assembly, once the product has been designed and it's more of a turnkey sort of process, should be lower. So I've just put a price of $50 per hour on that, well, per unit, which happens to be per hour. In fact, let's make that $60 an hour so that it's $1 a minute, just to make all the calculations really simple. And then in PCB price, let's make that 0.5 of an hour, so half an hour, and it's going to be $30 of assembly time per board. Okay, so as you can see, the assembly time dramatically outweighs everything else to do with putting this board together. So there's a total price here of $51.92, and more than half of that is just the assembly time. So the bill of materials, as you can see, bill of materials, $13. And this is the thing, is that a lot of people, their expectations of how much it costs to build a board is based on the bill of materials price. So if you Peter says, for assembly time, John charges over 9,000. So, well, 404 not found. If you like, I can do that for you. Get some mood lighting happening. All right, everybody. Yeah, and somebody suggested that I change the name of my She Who Shall Not Be Named voice assistant so that when I do this on the stream, it doesn't affect everybody else. But I haven't actually done that yet. I should. So for now, I'm going to say, Alexa, turn off the office lights.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're in mood lighting territory. So I'm in the mood for some inventory management and spreadsheets. Okay, so let's do this. Many people, the really common thing is people will say, take your bill of materials and multiply it by a certain number and that should be your cost. In my opinion, the bill of that number that you multiply by should be way higher than most people say. So let's figure out a factor. This is going to be, so what we can see here is by the time we've added all of this together, we've got a price of $51.92 and the bill of materials was $12.98. Now this is a bit of an unusual one because the assembly time is so high, and I'm going to play around with this. You know, the funny thing is that it's now 40 minutes or something that I've been talking about this. I'm still going, how is this possible? So, okay, I'm just going to put a multiplier, like a multiplier calculation here. So I'm going to say this equals that divided by that. All right, so that number is essentially 4. So this is taking the bill of materials, multiplying it by 4.
Imogen Ann said, Bo Chica, wow, wow. Spreadsheets.
The spreadsheets. And
Austin's_creations said, don't forget pandemic shipping prices.
yes, pandemic shipping prices. And Peter says, cost multiplication for parts and stuff should include item size, storage, and turnover considerations. Yeah, because there'll be some lossage. Part of that is bomb kitting fee. So this 20% bomb kitting fee, that is partly to cover that sort of thing as well. And that's the extra overheads associated with just having that bill of materials, having those parts. All right, so I've heard two different rules of thumb. So one rule of thumb that I heard ages ago was take your bill of materials and multiply it by 1.7. That number is way too low. The other common one that a lot of people say is take your bill of materials and multiply it by 2.5. And that is better. In this particular case, you can see it should be 4. Bill of materials multiplied by 4. Now, part of the reason for that, there are a couple of reasons for that. One here is that this assembly time is very high. Now, if you are building a board that is, as I said before, is just a simple board that you can then, you've put all of the work in up front. So you've got automated test fixtures that can do things like load the firmware and then run automated tests and then give you a pass-fail.
Supply costs by at least 3.
Yep, always by at least 3. So I'm derailed. Okay, so where was I? That's right. Okay, so a board that you spend like no more than 2 minutes on per PCB, because you whack it in a text fixture, you press a button and you get a pass-fail, and then you stick it in an anti-static bag and you staple it closed or you heat seal it or whatever, and then you put it aside. So you've spent like 2 or 3 minutes per board. In that case, the assembly time is going to be very low. So let's say you spend, I've got to do the decimal conversion here. What is 3 minutes per board? It'll be 0.02 of an hour. Is that calculation correct? I don't know. I think hopefully it is. So 3 minutes per board, 0.02 of an hour. Then the assembly time is going to be $1.20 worth. And then the multiplication number comes way down. It comes down to 1.8 essentially. And that is more in line with what people say it should be. But that is unrealistic in my experience. To be spending 3 minutes per board is really unrealistic. It always takes longer than that. If you don't have an automated test fixture, then you have to, on your computer, you've got to open whatever software you use for loading the firmware. You've got to plug a programmer into the board, flash the firmware, do your testing, unplug it, put it aside, grab the next one, and do all of that again. So testing might take a little while. Then you've got to bag them up and seal them, label them, all of those sorts of things. So more realistically, even on something fairly simple, it's probably more like 10 minutes per board. And also Peter said that is also assuming a board will pass or the test box won't jam, etc. Yep. Oh, Rob V says, how about changing Alexa to Steve? Yes, I should. That's a very good idea, Rob. Illuminator is here too. The Lane says, I charge 5% of parts and get no complaints. And Stephen says, if you have to hand solder through-hole parts, that adds a lot of assembly time. Yes, definitely. That's right, because I have not even, in that time, so this is assuming 100% machine placement and reflow with no post-processing. So the reason that I had this big number here before, like say, let's make it 0.5, so half an hour. Okay, imagine a more complicated board. And for this is the sort of project that I normally work on. So for me personally, they can be quite labor intensive. And in fact, 0.5 is unrealistic. Realistically, it's more like an hour per board that I will spend. And that might sound crazy, like a large amount of time, but think about this. Once a board is assembled, okay, I'm going to use, as an example, because I've talked about it many times before, the water cannon project. Now, imagine that I am building an ECU for controlling a water cannon, and I need to add, so the board goes through reflow. It gets the parts placed, it goes through reflow. Then it needs connectors soldered onto it, and they can be large connectors, lots of pins. It needs headers soldered onto it. It needs all that sort of thing done, like programming header, pin headers for jumpers for configuration, whatever else might have to go onto it. So you have to sit there for a few minutes with the soldering iron, putting all of the through-hole parts onto it. Then it needs to go through, well, at some point in the process, it also needs to go through cleaning. So let's ignore that for now. And cleaning basically involves putting it into the ultrasonic cleaner, which typically I don't even run in ultrasonic mode. I just run it in heating mode, and then it sits in there for a while, and then it might be in there for half an hour, and then it comes out and has to be rinsed in clean water. And then after being rinsed, it goes into a dehydrator. And for this now, I use my old reflow oven, being controlled by one of Sion's Reflow Master Pros in a bake profile. So the boards go into a reflow oven to be dehydrated, and then they come out and they are perfectly clean and perfectly dry. So part of the process, so that all of that has to be done to every board. So you've got to allow for the time involved in that. That's a fair bit of handling. That's moving things around, putting it in the thing, bringing it out, washing it, putting it in the oven, running it through the bake cycle for a couple of hours, getting it back out again. You know, that is all time involved. That's handling. Then it has to be flashed with firmware. So it has to be plugged into a programmer. You run ESP tool or whatever, AVR dude if it's an AT Megabase thing, or whatever. So you run your program that does the flashing. Then it has to be tested, which means putting it into a test jig, hooking up all the connectors, exercising it, and in the case of, in some test jigs, they might complete in like a couple of seconds. You press go, runs the tests really super fast, and it's done. But in some cases you can't do that. In in many of the boards that I do, they include motor drivers and things that I want to load up for a while. So I want to get them up to operating temperature. I want to make them hot and stress them just to make sure that everything is good. So they will be connected up in a test system, and then they will be driving motors for a while. Like they'll be running loads and putting current through it and getting hot just to make sure that nothing fails. Like something might work if you run it for 2 seconds and then fail once it's got hot, like once it's been running for a few minutes. So it needs a little bit of that burn-in test. That takes time. Then you unplug it from the test jig. Oh, and also they all get barcoded and individually serial numbered and tracked through this process. So you have a board with a barcode on it with the serial number, and I have a database that lists every board that I've made and what firmware was loaded on it, what date it was assembled, what date it was tested, what the version of the hardware is, all of that sort of stuff for every single board. Then, so you have to update that spreadsheet or that database. And then okay, so at this point you've got a board that's tested. Next, conformal coding. Now to conformal code a board, so for those of you who don't know what conformal coding is, you can think of it as kind of being like paint. It's a coating that goes onto the PCB that's usually transparent. Like you can get it in spray cans, you can get it in cans that you brush on, and it makes the board resistant to moisture and other environmental things. So most consumer electronics does not have conformal coating, but stuff that's destined for harsh environments like automotive type things, they usually have conformal coating. So then the PCB is now cleaned, it's tested, it's fully working. You're not even close to done yet. So to do the conformal coating, you need to make sure the coating does not get into switches, like your reset switch. You can't allow it to get onto contacts on connectors. You can't allow it to get onto contacts on pin headers and jumpers and things. So then what I have to do is mask off things like the reset button and any other points on the PCB that I do not want the conformal coating to get onto. And I have sacrificial connectors, so all of the connectors that I don't want coated, I plug a plug into it or put a sacrificial pin header jumper onto it. And I also have 3D printed covers that go onto connectors, onto some types of connectors to cover gaskets, etc. So it takes quite a few minutes per board just to prepare it for the conformal coating. It needs all of the masking done, all the connectors put in place, the connector covers. Then it goes into a little spray box. So it gets hung up in the spray box and sprayed with the conformal coating. And it then, typically I do either 2 or 3 coats of conformal coating. So it then hangs in that box, in that spray box, for probably half an hour to a couple of hours, depending on what else I'm doing at the time, so that the conformal coating can dry up. And then I take it out of the box. This whole thing is way off the point of inventory management now. It sounds like I'm just complaining about how much work this is. So then I take the PCB out of the box where it's been on a little hanger so that it's supported in the air and can be rotated. And then I have to remove all of the masking. So I take off the masking over the reset button, unplug all of the sacrificial connectors, take off the 3D printed covers over things like gaskets and stuff that you don't want conformal coating on. And then you have a board that is almost ready. So then you get to the packaging. So then it can go into, say, an anti-static bag and get labeled and put aside and be ready for the customer to be sent to the customer. So all of those things that I've just described are manual overhead beyond the raw thing of just pick and placing parts onto a board. The pick and place part of it is, and then going through the reflow oven, is a relatively small portion of the costs of assembling a board. So that's why in this row here, assembly time, so if at 1 hour per board to do all of that stuff at $60 an hour, then your multiplier needs to be 6.3 times your bill of materials cost. So, and you'll also notice the PCB price here is moderately high. So it's $2.70. That's doing things like amortizing the cost of the stencil, the shipping, and because a lot of the time you look at a PCB price and you go, oh yeah, PCB costs 50 cents or 30 cents or something. The reality is, no, it doesn't. By the time the raw per PCB price, typically you will double it by the time you add shipping, and you will probably double it again by the time you add a stencil and the cost of shipping the stencil, because stencils are big and they cost a lot to ship. The stencil itself might only cost 20, 25 bucks, but getting it to you might cost 70 or 80 on DHL. So by the time you amortize all of that, $2.70 for a PCB in this particular case per board. And that means, yeah, 6.3 times the raw bill of materials cost, and that gives you the actual cost of putting this board together. $13 becomes $82. So, what am I up to? Okay, so my whole point of this is that this journey that I'm on at the moment is about doing the two things that I mentioned. One is just keeping track of, do I have enough parts? Or doing the hypothetical of, all right, I want to make 100 of these boards. Tell me if I have enough parts for that and which parts I don't have and how many I need to order to make up that quantity. So it's projecting requirements for production batches. And the second is this calculation. I want to be able to load a bill of materials into a piece of software and have it give me this number down the bottom. Now there are a couple of things that would have to be included, like assembly time. There are some things like PCB price will vary a little bit. So there are a couple of, an additional BOM. There are a couple of fudge numbers or numbers that just need to be manually put in. They can't be derived from the bill of materials. So, and then generate the total price. So this comes down to, it's partly a quoting issue as well. If a client, either an existing or a new client, comes to me and says, how much would it cost me to make 20 of these boards? I don't want to have to spend 4 or 6 hours working that out. And that's what I currently do. It takes hours and hours to get to a number of how much is a board going to cost. So I want to be able to do something like bring in a bill of materials.
Mitchell R. said, just saying Odoo, Inkle tracking of manufacturing process, quoting and invoicing, etc.
Odoo, yep, okay. Austin says, oh, it might say it now. Is it going to say it? No. Maybe it's rate limited or something. Denied. So I will say it. Austin says, for a temporary use case, you could have a master sheet in that document and use conditional formatting to change the background color. Yes, true. So anyway, this spreadsheet that I'm showing you here, this is not how I intend to ultimately do it. This whole exercise is a way of me exploring what the problems are with the process. So you can think of this as...
_creations said for a temporary use, you could have a master sheet in that document and use conditional formatting to change background color.
Yeah, so I could see if there were shortfalls on quantities and things. So you can think of this as being like a throwaway prototype. This spreadsheet that I've been screwing around with, this is just to help me understand what it is that I need out of an inventory management and quoting system. So the management of all the different parts. You'll see also that there's nothing in here that, and also this is just a capacitor cost. What I really need is a line item for every single value, etc. So there would be hundreds at least, probably in the thousands of rows in this. And then individual tracking. So, all right, there are many systems for this. There is PartKeeper. There is Xeon's inventory management system, which I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry, Xeon. There is Odoo. There's Inventory. Many people have bashed their head against this exact same problem that I have just been describing for the last hour. And there is no way that I'm going to build a system to do this. I have no intention of using a spreadsheet like this to solve this problem long term. I need an actual real system that that does it for me. Andrew says to automate something, work out how to do it manually first. Yes, exactly. So that's what this process is. This is the manual definition of the problem, so that I can then have a look at different systems and see how they work. Okay. Mitchell says, can automate Fusion export into Odoo, but it doesn't pull pricing and stuff. That's the only issue, but it does all of the other business stuff for you, like integrate with the store as well. Interesting. So yes, I've heard of Odoo in the past and never used it, but it sounds like that is worth an investigation, given Mitchell's Mitchell's interest in it. Okay, so Inventory is a system that I came across on the Opulo Discord, and I'm not sure if the Opulo folks use it themselves for management, but it's been discussed a little bit in the Opulo Discord, so I thought I would check it out. So let's see, admin Inventory, and let's log in to Inventory's online demo. There's some of the packaging material that you typically get from DigiKey. Save password, no, not now. And I just wanted to log in and have a quick look around. Where is it? Where do I get a plus? There. Zooming in a bit. Mitchell says, yeah, it's like 2012 I first looked at it. It's a dog's breakfast, but like SAP, but open source, and it has a nice API. David says comparing it to SAP sounds ominous. Interesting. Guildco says inventory is pretty good, but really limited. Chip said, would it be possible to utilize existing point of sale inventory management software? Not really, because most inventory management software is not oriented around manufacturing. It's more oriented around sales of existing products. So you're drawing down on stock levels. But what I need to be able to do is forward predict needs by doing things like saying, I'm going to do an assembly batch of a quantity 100, and there is a bill of materials. So then draw down the stock for 100 units multiplied by each of the line items in the bill of materials, and compare that to what the current stock is and see if there is any shortfall. So that sort of manufacturing forward prediction stuff is critical. That's really the core to all of this. All right, so Pico Blade PCB connector. Interesting. What am I looking at? Okay, subscribe category, subscribe parts, latest parts recently added. recently updated, and I think this is just a shared demo thing. So whatever people have added into here, this demo periodically gets reset back to a clean situation. But if people have been messing around in it, then who knows what state it's in. All right, so here we've got build orders in progress. This is what I was just talking about. Now, keep in mind that this is what you have just seen now is the first time I have ever logged into the inventory demo. I've never seen inventory before. I don't have a clue how any of this works. I'm just clicking around and checking what's there. So it looks like this is production batches that have been queued up. So we've got a pending status here, widget assembly variant, blue square table, test board 3, master assembly. Some of them are in production at some stage of production. Some are in pending state. So let's just, I don't know, test board 3. I just want to have a look at one of these and see what they show. All right, so build order, and we want a quantity of 50, required parts for a build, no build outputs have been created, okay. Required build quantity has not yet been completed, okay. I don't know what that means. Status pending completed outputs 0. Parent build issued by admin. All right. Required parts. Part TB3 test build 3 quantity 50. What is where's the bill of materials for test bill for that board? How do I get to the bill of materials? Available stock. In stock 5, allocated to build order 0. Building 55. Okay, I don't understand what's going on here. Let's have a look at parts. I'll begin at that point. Electronics. And just to understand how it stores its parts and part ordering. Let's pick passives and resistors. Alright, so it's got a category based thing. No category found. Subcategories. Where are all the resistors? Where did they go? Do you have to search to find one? Parts including subcategories, it says 48, but it's not showing any parts, even though I'm in the resistors section. Yes. Oh, Gavin says, worked with this prediction 20 years ago with Pertec for hydraulic hose, cost versus sales. Used an Oracle database, small item count of items. Your needs are levels of magnitude above what we did. Oh, okay. Yeah, have to click parts, says Grillco. Okay, parts. All right. So somehow I ended up in subcategories instead of parts. That was odd. All right, available, blah, on order. Let's just pick the first one. 100K resistors. 0402, 100K. In stock, on order. We can see allocated to build orders. That's cool. Okay, so if you've got a number of build orders in the pipeline, we can see that 800 of these parts have already been allocated, which means it's probably about time to order some more. Show part details and price range. Okay, so it's got pricing in here, creation date, last stock take, and how do I order more from here? Used in pricing. Oh, used in. That's cool. Let's see. Okay, so I'm in a part. There is stock for the part. Is that all the same? Oh, it is. Okay, so hang on. 0402 R100K. Last updated. Supplier part number. Okay, so there are different part numbers here. Purchase prices per supplier. Packaging. Last updated. So these are all 100K 0402 resistors but it's from multiple suppliers, which is why there was a price range up here. So price range, everything from 20, why is it 22 cents for a resistor to 90 cents for a resistor? That sounds rather unrealistic. Purchase price, stock value, yeah, okay, they're probably just totally bogus numbers, but anyway, the specifics shouldn't matter. Alright, so we've got a number of different parts from different suppliers. That's good. So this is one of the things that can be really tricky with electronics inventory management compared to other things, is that you can have substitute parts. So typically what you'll have is a meta part, and then you'll have multiple parts that can fulfill that requirement. And in this case, if you've got a PCB that needs a 100k resistor, what you do is you, in your bill of materials, you specify the 100k meta part, and that part can be fulfilled from any of these things. So these are all different parts which could have different characteristics, different prices, different suppliers, but if they are all equivalent and can be substituted, then what you care about is usually the total.
Lawler said, I never met a part one didn't mean.
I never met a donut I didn't want to eat. So what you usually care about is the meta part, rather than the individual parts that make up that generic 0402 100k resistor. Now that's not always true, but usually it's true. So here we've got stock of that. Okay, build orders. So we can see that it has been allocated to these build orders. We've got 600 to this build, we've got 200 allocated to that build. Okay, used in. Now we can see that this particular part is used in these 3 boards. Now this reverse way of looking at things is really useful. If this is something that I have not been able to do, actually, I tell a lie. I have done this by using grep on the command line, like grepping through the XML schematic files in my projects directory to find all the references to a part. This is the situation where I might see some parts on the shelf, or I've got some parts and I see, oh, I've only got 50 of those left. I wonder what project uses that particular part. And it might be something unusual like a MOV, or it's not just a 1k resistor, which is in every single project. It might be something slightly obscure, and you're thinking, what is, out of the 200 projects in my Eagle directory, which projects use this particular part? And then I grep through the directory to find all the references in all the schematics to that part. So being able to back reference and see which things use a part can be useful. Pricing, okay, internal pricing, purchase history, supplier pricing. Having some history here is pretty cool. Suppliers, we've got suppliers listed here. That looks cool. I wonder how this gets updated. We're going to get to some details in a minute. Okay, suppliers. So here we have, and a link. Okay, maybe this is how it scrapes things like pricing information and stock levels on suppliers, I hope. Let's see. So we've got this particular part. What I wanted was, not that. Okay, that's the generic part, supplier part. That is going to take us to, okay, so this is the entry for this particular supplier's version of that part. It's got the external link to the DigiKey page, and that's it. New stock item, DigiKey. Okay, cool. Purchase orders. All right, supplier part pricing, and it's got price breaks as well. So at quantity 100, it's this. At quantity 1,000, it's this. Yeah, cool. Let's go back Oh no, that's not back. Stock items, that's not back. How do I get back to where I was? Suppliers, DigiKey. I've ended up down a path that is not where I was before. So, oh, I could have got back. I know what I can do. I can go to click on the generic part, and that'll take me back to the generic part page. That's good. Okay, that seems quite nice. It covers all of that stuff. Suppliers, purchase orders. Okay, so this would be orders that have been placed against suppliers, so you know that there are 1,000 on order. Scheduling. Part scheduling. Scheduled stock quantities, minimum quantity, maximum quantity. Stock required. Okay, so you can have build dates, like date requirements for batches, and then it can do predictions based on when you will need those parts. That's nice. Stock take. Okay, looks like we can do some updates on how do we do the updates. Oh, okay. You can't see it because my face is in the way, but there is a stock quantity. Oh, someone's doing a bit of circle work out the front. Can you hear that? Actually, I wonder if I can go... Where's my other phone? I'm very tempted to go mobile. Oh no, they've already buggered off. Oh well. I was just going to grab my Droid Cam and go and see, yeah, squirrel, and go and see whoever was doing circle work out the front. There is a bit of extra rubber on the road there now. Okay. Ooh, stock. That's right, we were looking at stock. So, stock items, total quantity, and a date for the stock take. Okay, stock. Related parts. I don't know what related.
Peter Lawler said someone didn't pay the microphone battery subscription fee. Creations said we have audio.
You do now. Luckily, I had a second microphone. I actually had this on charge before the stream. What's the level on this microphone? This one is almost fully charged according to the little display. Yeah, we'll fix it up in post. Hang on, I've got to turn this other thing off. Okay. Yeah. That'll be fine. Got plenty. Okay, so where was I? This is... In fact, I'm going to plug that one back into the charging cable. That one shouldn't have gone flat because that was actually charged. I wonder if the battery in the microphone is starting to fail a little bit and not hold its charge. That would be sad. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so some of the systems that I've seen, and I'm pretty like Xeon's does this, and PartKeeper does this. They link to places like LCSC, and they will live pull down pricing information and stock levels, so that when you come into this part, you can see I can buy this part from DigiKey or LCSC or Element 14, and these are the prices, and these are how many they've got in stock. So it's a little bit like having Octopart built into the inventory management system. Cable tie, thanks for sending that message. Yes. The back channel way of getting my attention. And yes, I know you sent that message a few minutes ago. I just didn't say thank you until now. Now, used in pricing. Okay, so that's parts that we've been looking at. Builds. All right, let's have a look at builds. And oh, hang on. Buy suppliers, manufacturers, purchase orders, and sell customers, sales orders, return orders. Okay, interesting. And where am I? Okay, so where do I define a board and bring in, say, a bill of materials? Build orders. What is this? Download table, reload, add new filter, new build order. Okay, out of interest, let's just click on new build order, build 17. Sure. Part, select a part to build. So we need to have defined a part first, I guess. So in this context, parts must be something like a sub-assembly. I think maybe, I don't know, to my brain, this seems more like an assembly than a part. And then the assembly might consist of different parts. So how do we define a new part in this context? Doohickey, an assembled electronics thing. Okay, description, brief description of the build. I'll say test build 17, quantity, and I want to make 100 of them. Project code, do I want a project code for this build order? Project blah, okay, oh, okay. So we can have projects, that could be, say, a client code or something, perhaps, that could be useful. Build priority, all right, so we can prioritize builds, that looks useful. Build order to which this build is allocated. A parent build. So we could have multiple sub-assemblies. Oh, damn, I just clicked escape and the whole thing went away. Now I've got to start this again. Go back to doohickey, test build 17, quantity 100, and I'll ignore all of that. Parent build, ignore. Sales order reference, I'll ignore that. Batch code for this build. Batch 17, build completion date. All right, can we do a date picker thing on here? Nope. Day, month, year. At least it's sensible. All right, let's do it by Christmas Day. And source location. Oh, okay, so we can have multiple source locations. That's cool. So we could have like R&D stock versus production stock. I'm just going to leave it blank. Destination, location, where is stuff going to be stored? All right, a fair bit of this I would not care about, but that doesn't matter. Issued by admin, responsible, and then I can assign it to people. Okay, so now we have build order 17. No build outputs have been created for this build order. I don't know what a build output is. So how do I make a part? So this is based on, maybe it's done in the same way. No, that doesn't make sense. How do I, test templates. What's that? I don't think I saw that before. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Test templates. Assemble the electronic module which should perform some unknown function. I don't know. Bill of materials. This. Okay. So we've got a bill of materials here. So far I'm getting kind of lost in here. I'm not quite sure of my navigation or where I am at any one particular point in time. Now let's try, what am I going to do? Parts. So it looks like the term parts is used to refer to both an assembly and an individual part. Hello. Then I don't know. What am I doing? New parts. Yeah, so what we've got in here is a mix of individual parts and assemblies. So for example, we've got 100 picofarad 0603 capacitors, and we also have a blue table and a blue chair, and those things I think consist of a number of other parts. Maybe. So it could be that this is, the idea is that instead of making the distinction between a part as a component and an assembly as a group of components, it just treats everything as parts, and parts may consist of sub things. I don't know. This is just my interpretation trying to look through this at the moment. Now let's have a look at, well, let's make a new part and just see what happens. Category, part category. All right. Electronics, connectors, ICs, passives, furniture, mechanical, paint. All right. I'm going to electronics, components, and systems. I'm just going to make it electronics. And I'm going to say test board 17, IPN, internal part number. Don't care about that. Let's say it's TB17 is the SKU. Revision 1.0, test board V1.0 as the description. Variant of, is it a variant of another part? Nope, not in this case. Units of measure for this part. I don't know what that means. Do we put in like pieces? Or is it millimeters? Or is it 1 as a quantity? I have no idea what that means. Units of measure for this part. Okay, so link to external URL, default location, where is it stored? Expiry, minimum stock. Alright, responsible. Can this be used to build other parts? Okay, so it can be a component. Or it's an assembly. Can this part be built from other parts? Okay, I want to make this an assembly, not a component. Is it a template? No. Trackable? No. Purchasable? Can this part be purchased from external suppliers? No. This is a board that we're going to assemble. Saleable? Yes. This can be sold to customers, and it's not virtual. Okay. So it looks like, as I guessed, the part concept covers both individual parts and assemblies of parts. Alright, now that I am clearer on that, that's good. Initial supplier data, leave blank to skip. SKU, leave all of that. Manufacturer part number. Copy category parameters. Copy parameter templates for selected part. Yeah, okay. Submit, and let's see what we get. Now, can we create, how do we go about setting up a bill of materials for this part? So if this part is a board and I want to make it out of 112 other parts, how do I get those in? What are these? Total count part, stock, duplicate part, edit part, bill of materials. The bill of materials has not been validated. Okay. No BOM items found. Add BOM item. Export BOM. Can we do an import BOM? Upload BOM. Nice. Okay. Requirements for a BOM upload. Must contain the required name columns as used in the BOM upload template. Each part must already exist in the database. Fair enough. So let's have a look at the BOM upload template. What options does it give us? Yeah, CSV will do. So let's see what is this going to open? Yes. Okay. This is the template that's provided. So part ID, part IPN, quantity, reference, note, optional, consumable, average, inherited, allow variance. Okay. That does not look like I would expect for a bill of materials list of parts, because I would expect value, footprint, and those sorts of things to be in here. So that's a bit unusual. I'm not quite sure how that is meant to work. Okay, maybe it'll be clearer if I return to BOM and I will try manually adding a BOM item. So add BOM item. Select part to be used in the BOM. And searching, say I want a 100k resistor in here. Searching for 100k, 0603, select that. Quantity, it needs 12. And overage, so build wastage quantity. Stock items for variant parts can be used. Okay, allow variance. Gets inherited. This BOM item is inherited by BOMs for variant parts. Yeah, okay. Consumable is not tracked in build orders. Optional, no. Okay, submit. All right, so now we have a 100k resistor, quantity 12. Not allowing substitutes, it's not optional, and it is not a consumable, but it is allowing variance. And yeah, all right. So what would be really nice would be to import something like a bill of materials exported by KiCad into this and have it auto-populate this. But that import format was not what I was expecting to see at all. So maybe that is because of this requirement that the parts must already be in there. So all you're doing is supplying a reference to an existing part. But then how do we get that reference into something like KiCad? Okay, so build orders, pricing, internal pricing, price range data is not available, sales orders, scheduling. Okay, so related parts. Okay, well, so far this all seems quite interesting, and having read exactly 0 lines of documentation or a quick start guide or anything like that, just poking around in here, I think I've kind of partly figured out at least what it's doing. So okay, so it looks like, from what I've seen so far, inventory can definitely take care of one of those 2 requirements that I had, which is keeping track of how many do I have of a part and how many do I need based on projected batch quantities, like what's going to be built, and therefore how many of those parts do I need. So, and it has dates as well, so you can project, I want to build this particular batch by this date, therefore I need this quantity of parts by this date. So that side of it seems to be pretty decent. Now the other part, which is replicating what I'm doing here, loading a bill of materials and giving me a dollar value at the end of what I should be charging a customer for it. So far, I don't think that it can do that. Price break data available. In stock, can build. What's that? Is that for duplicating? Copy. Okay. Let's go back to bill of materials. And so far I've obviously only got one bomb item in here. So can build 0, available stock 0, in stock, no stock. I don't really know what I'm trying to do now. I think what I'm doing is just I'm poking around. What does it take to define an assembly, and therefore
Austin's underscore creations said see link.
Alright, there is a link to documentation. This is price and cost. The theoretical amount of money required to pay for something, the actual amount of money paid. Terminology, pricing sources, currency support. Yep, currency support, that's such a painful thing to have to deal with. BOM pricing, okay, if a part is designated as an assembly, then the bill of materials can be used to determine the price of the assembly. Alright, maybe what I could do is have a virtual bill of materials entry for things that are in here. Or things like PCB price. There needs to be a PCB price factored into it at the very least.
Underscore creations said see the top page pricing sources.
Yep, pricing sources. Okay. Pricing. Raw data only. Any calculations or decisions must be, yep. Alright. Inventory attempts to provide a comprehensive pricing architecture which is useful without being prescriptive. Yeah, so I think what I could do is in the so bill of materials for this particular thing, let's say add BOM item. Well, no, what I need to do first is go back to parts and say alright, I'm going to add a theoretical thing. Part category. Electronics. Probably, yeah, probably it would be in a different category, but
Austin's
I'm just going to make it electronics for now.
Said 2 subheadings down is pricing sources chart.
Oh, okay, pricing sources. So I'm going to do assembly labor and internal part number. I'm going to call it labor. And not a variant of anything. Keywords, units of hours. I'm gonna say hours. I don't know if that's valid or not. Who knows? Default expiry, no expire. Responsible. Can this be used to build other parts? Yes. Can this be built from other parts? No. Can it be purchased from external suppliers? No. Sold? Yes. Is it a virtual? I'll say it's a virtual part, because it does. You can't say it's infinite, but we don't have to actually get it in from anywhere. So I'm going to say labor, and maybe this is totally the wrong way of doing this, but anyway, I'm just going to do this. Our invalid physical unit. All right, I can't measure time in hours. I will just not have a unit of measure for this. So then what is the, how do I set costings for this? Name, parameter, dollar, part details. How do I set? What does this do? No pricing information is available for this part. Okay. I want to, what if I do a new parameter? Template? No. Where do I set a price for a part? Maybe it needs to be sourced from a supplier when the supplier is us. Okay. I don't know. This is the point where I would start having to yeah, there is no costing information when defining this part. So I'd probably yeah, I don't know. I obviously don't have my head around the hierarchy yet. But the point of what I was doing was I was just trying to make a virtual part. 9 minutes. Look at the pricing tab.
Peter Lawler said 9 minutes.
9 minutes. Internal pricing. Oh, add internal price break. Add cell price break. Okay. Let's do add cell price break. Quantity 1, price for simple calculations. Let's make this $60 an hour. Currency US dollars. And I want it to be Australian dollars. Okay, so it now costs $60 for one of them. Now, can I do a quantity of something like 0.3 in a bill of materials? I don't know. Used in nothing so far. All right, so let's go back to here and find that thing that I was just working on. What was it? It was something 15. How do I search for a part? There. 15. The one that I was just adding. Test board, I think I called it, wasn't it? Test board. Is that going to find anything? TB17, this is the one that I was just defining. Alright, now let's try adding this bill of materials. Add bill of materials item, and I want to add labor, assembly labor, quantity. Let's make it 0.6 just to see if we can freak it out. Yeah, whatever, I don't care. Leave all of that. Okay, so now we have a quantity of 0.6 and no price has come through. So, assembly labor. Okay, so I obviously haven't defined the assembly labor thing properly. I wonder if I edit that and make it 1, will it then have a valid? Nope. It's still saying price range is 0. Gets inherited, no. Allows variance, no. Or maybe the problem is somewhere in there. Let's say this bomb is inherited by bombs for variant parts. Okay, no. No. Consumable, no. Item is optional, no. None of that seems relevant. Quantity, reference, no. Okay, so I don't know why the price that I set for that item has not appeared. Variant stock allowed. Saleable part, virtual part. Maybe it's because it's a virtual part. I don't know. Did you set price under in? Ah, right, yes.
Stephen W. says you may need to make the labour charged by the minute.
Yeah, and some call it fun said, did you set price under internal price? How much a part costs to make? Otherwise, you might need to specify a supplier. Yes. So that is a very good point. Let's go to this one and pricing, because I set sale pricing. I didn't set internal pricing. So I'm going to add an internal price break. Quantity 1, price 60, and Australian dollar. Hopefully there's a way of setting the default units. Alright, so now if I go to used in, it should show me that it's used in TB17, which it is. Then I can go to that, and yes, now we have a price. Although you can't see it because that. Alright, so now we've got 1, and it is, why is it saying 39? Is that because of currency conversion? This is probably US dollars. So it's taken the 60 Australian dollars that I set for 1 hour and it's converted it into US dollars. Available 0. So the price of this particular part is probably set in US dollars. Yes. Okay. So my general feeling of all of this is that this is a big, complicated thing to get my head around. There's a lot in this. Okay, so just part keeper. I know that I'm now pretty much out of time, but just for reference, part keeper is another one that I looked at some time ago, and a couple of years ago. So I don't know if this is any better or worse.
Creation said near the right-hand corner of the screen has dollar symbol. Does it bring up a menu? That's
an excellent question. Top right-hand side of the screen has a dollar symbol there.
Peter Lawler said, "Hello, Mr. Gumby."
Hello, Mr. Gumby, Peter. No, calculate. No, that's just, yeah. Oh, quantity. Okay, let's say price calculation. Make it 10. And unit purchase price, total purchase price. Okay, so it's doing price break calculations. So say I wanted 100 of those. Presumably then it's because there are price breaks on the individual parts within it. So, okay. Welcome to the Part Keeper demo site. Wow, this is old school. This, yeah, this user interface is a little bit, it's very Windowsy, I think. Not that I really know what Windows looks like. Or is this more like very old Mac OS? I don't know. Alright, root category replimate, connectors, crimp contact. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to get deep into this. It looks like SAP. Yeah. Yeah. Thumbnail view. Alright. I don't want to get too much into Part Keeper, but it looks like this one has Microfit 3.0. I've just been this particular part, Microfit 3.0 2-pin housings. I just ordered those like a week ago. Part Keeper. Yeah, I don't know if Part Keeper is currently maintained up to date. I haven't looked at the activity of this project at all for a while. Or what's involved in it. Yeah. So, source code at GitHub. Groovy. So all the source code is up there. Cool. Right. So, what am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, so just based on the last 2 hours of poking around in here, inventory looks interesting, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to go. I think what I need to do is spend a bit more time looking at different systems. So I need to go back and look at Xeon's system, which I haven't looked at for a while. Look at, maybe have a quick look at PartKeeper again, and do a bit of a weigh up the options. Oh, Django. Yep. So I don't know. I don't know what to do. Oh, cable tie. Yes, that's a very good suggestion. Write down a list of must-haves and compare them to the options. Yeah. Okay, so what you're suggesting is a formal validation process where I have an assessment matrix and then score the different things based on how well they do those things, and then totally ignore it and then just pick the one that feels right. That's the way it's done, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's the usual process. But yes, you're right. I should probably list my list my requirements. Okay, so just off the top of my head, the two base things that I already mentioned, those are at the very high level. I want to be able to keep track of what parts I have and therefore what parts I need based on boards I'm going to build, and I need to be able to generate pricing. I need to be able to load a bill of materials and say how much is it going to cost, or how much should I charge the customer for these particular boards to make 20 of these. So I want to streamline that process. But within that, oh, excuse me, oh, sleep is required. But within that, I need also to there are things that I would like to be able to do. For example, I would like to be able to paste the URL of an LCSC part into the system and then have it automatically track how many LCSC has in stock, and pull down like an image of it would be really nice. I'm pretty sure this is what Xeon's system does, because he uses LCSC primarily as a supplier, and what their pricing is, all of those sorts of things. So I also want to be able to import from packages like KiCad and Eagle format. Obviously you can't import from Fusion because Fusion is only online, but what I can do is export a bill of materials from Fusion and then import that as a CSV. So being able to handle imports of a bill of materials, because what I want to be able to do, okay, I want to be able to, in the system...
Imogen Ann said, Jono, you must have seen Chip yawn and caught it from over here, lol.
Yes, mutual yawn. So I want to be able to click on new assembly or new board or something, new part is fine, and then import bill of materials and have it assigned from all of the different available parts that it already knows about, and then say I want to make 100 of these, tell me if I have the parts and tell me how much it's going to cost. So that is basically what I'm trying to achieve here. It is going to take more time. It's going to take a fair bit more investigation. Very, very sadly, Oh, it's not a simple thing. Okay. What next? What next? I need a rest. It's been 2 hours of looking at inventory management, which is not exactly the most fun thing ever. Seriously, I feel like I need to lie down on the couch now. I need to go upstairs, lie on the couch,
Peter Lawler
have a
said,
drink.
"Go home, John."
Yes. And question my life choices. You do not want to sell me death sticks. I do not want to sell you death sticks. You want to go home and question your life choices. Yes. So I'm going to do that.
Austins_creations said may not be entirely fun, but I am 500 plus hours into my project, which I've enjoyed.
Yep. 500 plus hours into your inventory management project, Austin. Chip was trying to figure out what my reference was with the you do not want to sell me death sticks. No, that was from one of the horrible prequels. That was Obi-Wan Kenobi in the bar. When the guy comes up and says, "Hey, you want some death sticks?" You do not want to sell me death sticks. These are not the droids you were looking for. I've lost the plot. I have totally lost the plot. You know, okay, before I go, I had a really weird experience on Thursday. I don't even know quite how to explain this. The closest thing I can describe it as is some kind of it's not quite a
Peter
hallucination.
Lola said everyone help John by logging off now.
Yes, logging off now. It was more like what's the term? A disconnection from reality is the best way I can describe it. It was like, or a dissociative experience. I was here working on Thursday, it was early afternoon, and I was working on something. I can't remember what. Might have been doing some coding or something, like working on some firmware. And I had this feeling that I didn't know if I was in reality anymore or not. You know those feelings like when you don't know if you're in a dream?
Thursdays. I never could get the hang of Thursdays.
I know. Johnny, thanks for coming along. You know that feeling when you are dreaming and you don't know if you're dreaming or not? And you can become a bit confused and think, is this real or is this a dream? And sometimes you can be in a dream and then think you've woken up and then realize that no, you're still dreaming. It was like that happened, but I was awake, sitting here working. For quite a while, I was trying to figure out, is this real? Am I actually asleep right now? Or is what I'm doing real? Yeah, it was a very, very odd experience. It was like the opposite of a lucid dream, where you're dreaming about being awake. I was awake, but I was in some kind of a dream state, and it was kind of freaky. Peter, say it, Peter. Come on, text-to-speech, do it.
Peter Lawler said, "Is this just real life? Is this just fantasy?"
Caught in a landslide. No
Peter
escape
Lawler
from
said, "Is this
reality."
just real life? Is this just fantasy?
Yeah. Yes, trying to escape the Matrix. Yeah. I don't know what I don't really have any point to telling you that, other than sometimes I am mentally in trouble, and I don't know if reality is real or not. So I am going to go and this is back channel conversation going on between Johnny and Cable Tie. So Cable Tie, did you find that analog audio shield? The other Johnny is really curious to know. Some call it fun, sir. Don't forget, if you change Alexa's name, you need to have someone tweak the say command to block the word Steve and the various misspellings to stop the chat from turning your lights off. Right. Yes, that's true. Okay. I'm going to go and try to reconnect with the world and see if what's outside the door is real. It's more fun when chat can control the lab. Yes. Yeah. Chip says have a good snooze. I don't think I'm going to have a chance for a snooze. I think I am going to lie down on the couch just briefly, but I need to go to my mum's place this afternoon and fix a bunch of things. I've got to fix a doorstep that is letting some rain in, and possibly fix a light in the kitchen and a couple of other things. There's a whole list that she sent me and I've only glanced at it. I don't even know all the things that are on the list. So I'm going to have to grab some... Chip, I will say hi to Mum for you. And see what tools I need to take. Some Call It Fun says, I'm told you can test reality by looking at a clock periodically to be sure time is progressing at normal speed. Yes, or like in Inception, spin a top and see if it keeps spinning. If it falls over, then you're in reality. Dodgy says, lay on the couch briefly. Is that like my dad used to say, I'm just resting my eyes? That's right, I'm going to go and rest my eyes. Johan, hello. I did something kind of crazy yesterday. Yes, I'm still here. I am still here. I thought I was going to end this stream about 15 minutes ago, but I'm still here. I did something crazy yesterday. I bought a PS5. And that is because the Last of Us Part 2 Remastered is going to be coming out soon, and it will only be available on PS5. And I am going to be playing that game the day it comes out. So I just wanted to make sure. So I grabbed a PS5 while they were on like Black Friday sales, and yeah, so I also got The Last of Us Part 1 because I've played The Last of Us Remastered on PS4 many, many times through, like literally dozens of times through, I think, beginning to end. And I know all the dialogue in it. And so I wanted to play The Last of Us Part 1, which is the updated version, the re-implemented version on the new engine. And so I played a little bit of it yesterday, and it looks fantastic. Looks so good. So maybe I will go and strangle some zombies. And well, you can't say they're zombies. They're infected. And then I will go and do some repairs at my mum's place. So yes, that was a lot of money to spend. I was second guessing myself. I don't think I've spent that much money on one thing for a very long time. But I got a yes. But I now have a PS5. So I'm going to go and escape reality a bit more and escape into the world of The Last of Us, and then go and do stuff. So maybe next week we will talk about the presents. No, actually next week I will definitely have the PCBs for the Open KO. So maybe I can do a live PCB assembly on the stream next week. Get back into fun things. Oh, Johnny says I have a PS3. Yeah, I have a PS3 somewhere as well, and the PS4 is what I've been using for a few years now. So going to a PS5 is quite a jump. All right, I really am going to go now. How do I leave? How do I get out of here? Oh, there's a button there that ends it. Okay, I'm going to press the button. Thanks for coming. Bye.